Hey guys, it's Corey and Christine from Beyond Freelance. And the question we're going to have a look at today is, what should I charge and should I raise my pricing? Before we get into it, I'm just going to say, if you're asking the question, should I raise my pricing? Probably should be raising your pricing. I don't think many people would be asking that question if they're not ready. So I know that's a big sort of statement to make. But yeah, I guess the goal often is to try and look at raising your pricing, and there's never a bad time to be, keeping your prices sort of fixed. But yeah, Christine, what are your thoughts on? I guess we'll start at the start. Like, what should you charge? About working out, what you should charge for a certain service and those sorts of things.
One thing that I have always done is kind of looked at, what do I need to bring home? That's kind of a starting point. If you're looking for a starting point, a book that was really helpful and kind of pivotal for me was Profit First.
Yep.
And when inside Profit First, I learned that, you are supposed to invest a certain amount back into your business, save a certain amount for taxes, take out a little tiny bit for profit, and then take home about 50%. I mean, that's kind of the average entrepreneur who makes under $250,000. That's kind of the breakdown. Is the 50% income, 50% of what you bring home is income, and 30% goes back into your business, 15% to taxes, and 5% to profit.
Yep.
And so that was a bit of an eye opener for me, that I really needed to bring home kind of twice what I wanted to, or I needed to bring, my business to bring in twice what I wanted to bring home.
Yep.
And then the other big aha for me in reading that book is that it is okay to invest back into your business, and in terms of like, outsourcing or hiring a VA or whatever, that looks like.
Yep.
So it kind of gave me permission to not, to allow myself to start delegating, and then, then that creates the space for you to grow.
Yeah.
But to go back to the starting point of what do I need to bring home every month, and then it kind of helps you understand, like, how many projects do I need to do if I charge this much, or if I charge this much, and that's kind of the starting point. And then, to be completely honest, I kind of like, when I'm doing web stuff, I got into a niche where everybody was kind of needed the same core website work. And so I would just sort of like go, 5,000 or whatever, and kind of created a starting point for myself. Those were based in, kind of, I went through and figured out how much time approximately it would take me. And then one thing I started doing was adding like a design fee on top of the time.
Yep.
That wasn't associated with time. And that allowed me to kind of get into that, I guess you could call it, instead of just completely hourly pricing, it was kind of value-based pricing a little bit mixed in. I kind of combined the two. And then as this is a lot, I'm getting, this is a big answer, but it really started with, okay, I need $10,000 a month. That means if I'm going to charge $5,000, I have to do 4 projects, or I have to finish 4 projects every month. And then that begins like, okay, well, I don't have that capacity. So then it kind of helps you understand what you really need to at least be working towards. I know not everybody can come out of the gate charging whatever amount, but you do need to have kind of your eye on where do I need to be, and how am I going to get there?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely perfect. And that's where I started. I think where I'm at now, I'm much more value-based pricing focused, which sounds a similar sort of thing. You start off, and I think one of the best ways to start off is to actually to work out, and there's formulas. I don't know them off the top of my head, like websites that will help you do this sort of stuff. But there are websites out there that help you calculate your, hourly rate, or what, and the best way to do that is to, if you look at a project and you can roughly work out how long something takes, maybe a logo, you need 10 hours, maybe you need 20, maybe you need 40, that it doesn't matter. If you have an idea of what it is that it takes you, and then you start to work out, well, how many hours do I spend in a week? So the first thing you do is you want to work out how many hours, can I work a week? And it's normally less than you think. right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
So
probably half what you think.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I mean, I remember learning this by being in operations at other agencies, and really what they allocate for a staff that works 40 hours a week is 30 hours of production, and that some places are expect more and some expect less, but 30 to 32 seem to be about a good average, and so that's saying that you're losing 8 hours. And if you're a freelancer or a small studio and you're doing, you're responsible for other stuff.
Yes.
If you want to work a 40-hour week and work like a business, and I think that's a great rule. You shouldn't be doing. It's not cool to be doing 60 hours a week. Work for your own business. That's another conversation. But if you work out, okay, in my business I want to do 40 hours, you need to allow for admin time, for sales time, for time where you're distracted. So it probably is coming down to like 25 to 30 hours worth a week. So work out what you need to earn a month, like what you said. If it's $10,000. And you can essentially just divide by 4 for the 4 weeks and divide by 30 and actually come up with a number. And then you can work out like how long a standard project takes. And then with that, I think that has to become your base. That you cannot do a project for less than that, or it is costing you money.
Exactly.
So for me, I've done that originally for myself, to work out what we're spending, what an average project looks like. But now I've moved away and just go, like, I'm not interested in it unless the value for me, like, this is like a logo feels like this amount. So it's not actually about a dollar amount. Like, I need $5,000 to be interested in the project. And that's not a number that's related to time. It's just, I can't be, it sounds rude, but I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered doing the work if someone's not willing to sort of make that as a base. And then beyond that, it's like, well, that is, again, like I said, that becomes your base. And then the conversation, and this is a bit of a golden rule, the conversation becomes, what is the client value and how much can I charge them? So that golden rule is that I like to refer to as you price for the client, not the job. So it doesn't matter if it's going to take you 40 hours.
You don't charge what you think you would pay.
Yeah, that's right. I remember you just made me think of something. I remember the first time I heard this idea, and it totally reframed my mindset around pricing. And it was the idea that people price for their own wallet. Yeah. And I've never heard that term before, but it's essentially saying that you have your own expectations around what something costs. So, me going out for a nice meal out, I might be willing to spend a couple of $100, whereas some people might only want to spend $50. Some people might be willing to spend $5,000. People live in different worlds, and that's okay. But when you're talking about pricing with someone, you don't know what their expectations are and what their values are. So you shouldn't limit yourself to price for your own expectations, or you kind of rip yourself off. Yeah. So that was a massive thing for me to learn.
And when you talk about your $5,000 base, I wouldn't take projects, that was sort of a baseline for me as well. Or a web project baseline might be 10.
Yep.
But inside of that was I had that design fee of like $2,500 that just was for me to like think about your project. Because when you may design a logo in an hour, but the idea of what the thought that goes into it that's outside of the actual production time, or even just the experience, for me, it's 30 years nearly that has gone into my ability to create that thing that may not take me that much time. I have to be compensated for that. And so I always tacked on I sort of called it open my brain fee. Like, I'm not even, you said you wouldn't even consider it. It's like the same for me. It's like, I don't want to even give that energy or think about it for less than a certain amount. And that's not being, that's just respecting my own experience.
Yeah. And knowing what your value is. And I think, that's probably, I guess, for me, a little bit of a problem where people sort of work out these hourly rates, and that's why I tended to move towards value-based concepts. And there is this thing that when you're working out your rate, right? Like we've talked about formulas for doing that first, but what is it that makes one person go, well, I need to earn $60,000, and then that's what I want my wage to be. but then
Mhm.
someone else expects that they should earn $600,000. Like what gives someone what frames you to sort of say, I'm only worth, 50, 100, 150? Why is that? So, that is a value. Even when you're working at your hourly rate, there is a value proposition that you're giving yourself. Like, I need $100,000. That's what I want. Well, why couldn't you have a better life if you said you wanted 150 or $200,000? At some point, there's a value that you're placing on yourself. So that's why I put that in straight into the actual conversation. Because even if you're doing it by the hour, I believe there's some value that's assigned there, if that makes sense. Oop.
Yeah, the last part of that sentence cut out for me. What was the last thing
just that even if you're doing stuff and you're working out what the hourly rate is, it's still assigned to a value that you've given yourself.
What makes you worth 50 versus 150 versus 200 an hour? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
In your own mind.
No, that's right. Yeah.
That's a really good question. I don't know if I can, answer that. For me, it's kind of like a combination of, like what the market will bear, what I think how confident I am in my ability to deliver. Yeah. It goes back to that other conversation we were talking about, our process and how confident we are to get to the end. I'm always 100% confident I'm going to get to the end. And so I think that ability to see that end point for the client has got to be worth, my ability to get there is worth a lot.
To actually raise something that I think is really interesting here in that, I think anyone that listens to this, I'm sure I've seen it myself a million times. I'm sure you've seen it where you see people that are charging more than you, or they're, they look more successful. It looks like they're getting more work or whatever it is. And you think my work's better than that. Right. And so there's this thing, well, what are they doing? They're doing something right. They're doing something right. And so this is the big question around, should I charge more? It's all great for us to sort of go, yes, you go charge more, go quick, go charge more. But there is the reality, and you sort of brought it back to that sort of market perception. What is someone willing to pay? So if you want to charge more, there's probably the easiest way to do that is if you're getting capped out by the people that you're working for, it's to start working with better people, because people will pay more for a service, Well,
and Michelle, who I've worked with a lot, and she's like a strategic marketing partner to me, talked about positioning and always talk, we always say, well, you're going to need to fish in a better pond.
Yep.
And she added to that recently where she said, you need to fish into a better pond, but you need to be using the right lure. So you could be fishing in the hot, people are always like, how do you find those clients who will pay that? It's like, that's like the, it's not a simple answer, but it's a lot of what you can charge is also based in how you're positioning yourself to the right people. Like you could be networking with, in a pond with people who can afford more, but you don't have the right lure. Or you could have the right lure and you're fishing in the cheap pond, you kind of have to have it. You have to have both of those things to find that higher paying client.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So you've got to put yourself in a place where those people spend their time. So it's almost a different conversation.
I know.
But it's about, we've talked about this already, before. It's about trying to understand ideal clients and what they look like. And we all probably have different ideas around what our ideal client is. And there's, a bit of a matrix you can work out to find that. I don't think we should go into that.
Another conversation.
But once you've done that and you understand who that ideal client is, and that ideal client may be because they're the people that you can make the most money for. It might be because that's the best process for you, or because you're emotionally connected to it. There's no right or wrong. But once you know who that market is, you can start to actually work out how to talk to that market. And so, if this is a financial decision and you're looking to earn more, and it's trying to find people who will see more value in the work that you do, and then talk to those people, what are they interested in? What things do they need to hear? And what, sort of social proof do they need? What things do they need to see from you to go, we can work with that person? And, around charging more, this is something that I kind of want to kind of call BS to it, is you see a lot of these people that sort of, talk about 10xing your price and all this kind of stuff. Like,
I've done it. Yeah. I've never talked about it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry then.
No, I want to talk about it from your end, and then I'll talk about it from mine.
Yeah. So I think, I see a lot of,
isn't as it appears,
know. Well, you see a lot of that stuff, and I just think, that's probably where people might get into a mistake, right? Like, if you look at your pricing right now and just tap to zero on at the end, that's probably not going to fly unless you are seriously undercharging, like, but you probably know that, right? This is something that's important. If you're really ridiculously undercharging, you probably have to, someone's nice enough to have said to you, wow, I was expecting that to be more, or that's a really good price. If someone's made those noises, put your prices up quickly. But if you just tap a zero on the end or 2 zeros on the end, like, you've got to reposition yourself. You can't just do that. And so one of the things that I think with that is incremental change is probably your friend with that stuff. So what were you going to say? Yeah.
That it was incremental. So, that's one of my, the ways that I try to get people's attention in designing to delight. And it is true. I did like 10 times my pricing, but I came into a new niche with experience, and I undercharged to get the ideal client project. And then I, created a portfolio and kind of marketed the heck out of that one project, and then was able to charge twice as much the next one. And I just kept leapfrogging. So every time I got 2 new projects at the price, I would raise it. But the raising of the price wasn't just adding a zero. It was actually going back to, having a design fee on top of an hourly fee. So then I would okay, I'm going to nudge my hourly fee from 75 to 100, and I'm going to double my design fee. And so there was a logic to the change. At one point I booked 3 clients at a lower price point and was completely overwhelmed and was like, I got to raise my prices. And so, within about 6 or 8 months in that new niche, I was charging over 10 grand per project. Starting at literally like $750 just to get myself in the door. So, I think I'm not sure how great of a tactic that is. It's hard to live off of undercharging, but it worked for me. And then I was able to maintain the price level in that niche.
So I have done the same thing myself, actually. We've not talked about this, so it's quite ironic that, we've had the same process. But you've got to be really wary of undercharging.
Yes,
but I think that it has to be intentional. That's very important. And the difference is if someone comes to you and they're looking for you to undercharge, that's a deal breaker. What you're looking for is opportunities where you can get something to gain from that. So maybe it's a type of project that or a type of client that you want to sort of work towards. And you think, if I can work with this, or this is a really good client, if I can get this through the door, I can make this look amazing and start to attract those people. And that sounds like that's exactly what you've done. And that's what I've done for my business. So I'm not
That's like choosing the lure. You're choosing the lure to get yourself into the where you can fish in the pond using that, it was an intentional choice to take on that.
I think with that incremental sort of incremental growth, and I was thinking about this, against the 10x sort of idea, if you put your prices up by 2%, right? Let's just say everyone that was listening just put the next quote that they did, they just put up by 2%. So let's say you charge now $5,000 for a project, and then you charge 5,000, or what's the 2% of that? Is it $5,000?
$100?
$100, yeah, $5,100, right? You're not going to have to do anything else in your process to land that client. If someone is going to pay you, not going to pay you $5,100, they probably weren't going to pay you $5,000, right? So you don't have to change anything. And with that, but if you did that every single month, after 12 months, it's like $6,200 or something. I had a quick look at the math before. It's like $6,200. Now, in that, you're starting to slowly attract better clients, and you can start to adjust your marketing rather than making this big leap and trying to do this 10x and go reinvent yourself and reposition yourself. you'll just start to slowly, and you can take bigger steps than that. I'm just using 2% as
Yeah.
an example, because honestly, anyone could just put 2% of an increase on there.
I think your brain has to catch up. You know, it's like I had the confidence level had to catch up to the price. You know, like that freaked me out to raise my price each time.
Yeah.
Because I was doing significant ones, and it was kind of almost like, I had to catch up with myself.
Yeah.
And
you were doing significant
were
ones,
almost more for me.
Yeah, but you were doing them significantly, but in steps though, weren't you? You weren't like going.
Yes, I was. Yes,
yeah.
Steps. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a similar thing. And that probably, to be honest, that looks more like what I've done. But I just like the idea that anyone could seriously put like 2 or 5% on what their current fee is and still attract that. They're still working with the same
It actually
market.
got easier to sell.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It was an easier sell at you know, a $10,000 website is actually almost, you know, you have to have the confidence in the positioning to back you up. But for me, it was like building the portfolio with the lower price stuff and making it look amazing. And then I had the confidence to charge more each time. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that idea as well, that with, you know, making stuff look amazing. And that's like what we do for other people. And I so often see, you know, designers or developers or, you know, these people, and like the stuff that we do for other people, they're not often doing them for themselves. So you could take your current portfolio and just absolutely pimp it so it's amazing and looks fantastic, and put some case studies there and really, you know, beef it up and talk about the impact that you make. And that's what you would probably suggest to a client if they come to you and said, look, I need to attract more clients. You know, my website isn't doing this. You'd say, oh, we need to work on social proof. We need to work on content. And then, you know, I see designers that aren't doing that for themselves. And they're like, well, why am I stuck with these sort of low end, you know, projects?
You know, I had one year where I was like, I finally kind of had to say, you know, is this portfolio worthy? When you were talking about like a baseline price, it also, is it portfolio worthy? Because I could went like a whole year with nothing to add to my portfolio because I was working on stuff that was like, you know, production or taking on someone else's branding and helping somebody, you know, and there was nothing that I could like show off for myself that I could like, you know, I wasn't choosing intentionally. And so I sort of got like my growth I just kind of got, I stagnated. And so I came out of that year kind of like, I got to kind of rethink, you know, and be more intentional about the projects I choose if I want to continue to move towards that target price. And I know it sounds like cliche or simple to just say, oh, I could pick or choose projects. It's not necessarily that. It was just being more intentional about the energy I put into going after specific projects, you know, and where I looked for them and things like that. But I was like, you know, whole year and there's nothing, I don't have anything new to add to my portfolio. I had a client who like got 90% done and then just disappeared. It was like, you know, and then I can look back and tell you why you know, I missed red flags at the beginning, and that's another conversation, but it's just kind of thinking through, like being really intentional with what you're choosing too.
Yeah. And I think, you know, if you look at portfolios as well, like let's say if you're really green and you're starting out, you know, you can show work that isn't client work. You can there's a lot of people that get traction and get noticed by, you know, redesigning famous things. You know, they'll reimagine what I don't know, Facebook should look like and give it a better UI. If you did that and you actually came up with a great thing, you know, an interface, and you put that on Behance and people notice that's probably more impactful than, you know, the crappy $800 website project that you just did. Now, again, it probably does go back to your ideal client. Like, are you really going to land Facebook? You know, so
are you an app developer or app designer or whatever? Or
so I think you've got to be careful around that, you know, to an extent that it should be in line with what you do. But like, you know, if you know what your market is and you work with a specific market, you're trying to move to that audience or that sort of type of work, show that work and show the best sort of work that you can. I know we're going a little bit off of pricing, but
well, that's what I did. You know, like that goes right back to the point of like, if you're breaking into a new market and you're intentionally going to choose something that, you know, that you might undercharge for, so that you can show the work, so that you can charge more. You're investing in the next projects. And I had a real intentional trajectory that I was really aiming for a certain price point and a certain type of client. And that's how I just stair stepped it. But I didn't, it was scary, but I was, you can charge more probably on your very next project without a whole lot of, your clients aren't, no one's going to necessarily notice, like it's okay to just charge more. And the other thing I was going to say is that you may be able to charge the same amount, but reduce the scope of what's inside. Like if you're uncomfortable charging more at this point or whatever, it might be that you back down on the scope of what you're including in the next project. Maybe you're doing 75% less. And that was part of my process of raising my prices. Also, what I did for $2,500 was a lot more than I do for 10 now.
Yep.
So I kind of back down, and that's another way to sort of essentially raise your pricing. Yep,
I agree. And with that, it's something that the flip side of that, and this is another thing to sort of call BS to, right? You see a lot of people chucking around figures in the industry. You see all these Facebook ads of people that like, 100,000, 6-figure clients, or, build a 7-figure agency or whatever it is. If you look at a lot of those, they're actually talking about revenue, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not really about revenue, it's about profit. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the really important thing to understand with that is that what you're trying to do when you raise your prices isn't to try and do more work, do bigger projects. It's to charge more for the same work. So it's not like going, how can I get, like, if you're not profitable doing $2,000 logos, and like, don't add stuff to that logo process and start doing style guides and, start doing, secondary brand elements and all of these sorts of things. And then start charging $4,000 and you've doubled your workload. You're still going to. So what you want to do is find the people that will pay you $10,000, or that's a big jump. But if you can find someone, if you're charging $2,000 for a logo right now, what you want to try and do is find someone that's going to charge you $2,500.
Exactly.
You can charge $2,500 for, and for the same thing, and that's a very similar market. So that's the best way to start to up your prices. Like same service, same level of work. Slight incremental price change. If you really need to go bigger changes, you need to look at repositioning. Yes. Yeah.
And that repositioning thing can be, there's usually a gap where people are trying to figure out what you're doing, and you might have like a little bit of a lull. And so you kind of need to plan for that. But I think, I still remember my price jumps, and it was very similar to that. It was, and the way that, if it's something that if you can't just like blurt out a price and be comfortable with it, you can then look back at like whatever you use to structure that initial price and say, okay, well, I'm going to bump my hourly rate by $20 an hour, or I'm going to adjust my design fee, and it's going to get me to that new price, so that you, in your mind, when you're saying that price to a client, at least it's not like it's just not something you pulled out of thin air. You're actually backing it up.
So I think
now I've pulled prices out of thin air. You can do it, but it's for your own confidence level, backing that up with the math.
Yeah, I think that you've brought on something. You've raised something that's really important, and it's essentially mindset and being confident around pricing. So a lot of people know I started charging. When I wanted to start charging more, I put prices on my website, and a lot of people don't like that idea of having public pricing. I'm not here to debate that. That's a different topic. Yeah. But one thing that was really important for me was, in doing that, it gave me an actual, like something to be accountable for. It's there in the world. So if I'm starting to say my minimum price for, a logo is $4,000, then it's kind of there in the real world. That's the starting point for those conversations. And that's made that actually easier. So I'm not saying you have to go away and do that, but if you're going to start thinking about pricing differently, you need to know what those prices are, and you need to get comfortable with saying them. Because if you're used to saying $500, when you talk to someone on the phone or in an email, you're going to sweat, and you're probably going to blurt out that number again. So, look, there's tactics you can use like price anchoring, but whatever tactic you use, you've got to start to get comfortable with those new numbers.
Don't blurt it out on that call and then go, oh crap, what did I just get myself into when you get off, like that, I think that it sets up the for me too. I do put pricing on my my website and on my inquiry form, because I want the person coming to me to have an expectation of the investment that's involved.
Yep.
And I think it just helps the call too.
Yeah, and like for me, that's been a real benefit when it's as a pre-qualifier. Like some people they'll ring up or they'll email, and I'll have a conversation with them, and they'll be like, "We looked at the middle package on your website, like, and we want to." Right, so I automatically know A, they're serious, B, they've framed themselves as that person, and then we're trying to have a conversation around what's involved or what does that look like. That like half of the work is done. Like yes. I just have to not mess up the actual process and connecting with that person and making sure that we're a good fit and that I can actually help them and try and help them understand those things. But it's no longer about a pricing conversation. It really is, it's not about the price, and it's just about are we a good fit? Should we be working together?
Yes.
So that's been beneficial.
Yes. Yeah, and I think too when you going to the confidence and the pricing, when you're looking at it like, I'm interviewing you as much as you're interviewing me, yeah. Like there's an, it's not necessarily, I know that there is times in my career where it's like, I really need this money. I really need to get this job. And even if it's not quite the right fit or whatever, but, I think that I always came to calls, and this is another topic, but I always kind of came to calls like with the idea that, we're trying to see if this is going to be a good partnership. Yeah. And so that sort of relaxed me a little bit too. It wasn't necessarily like I'm here to, hard sell you, or I have to hard sell you. Yeah. I'm trying to find out, if this is going to be mutually beneficial. And I think that sort of helped. That helped with the confidence, and that helped with the pricing and all of that, that all kind of goes together.
Yeah. Yep. No, I agree. So yeah, I think that's probably a bit of a takeaway with trying to adjust your confidence as well. To if you're going to start to try and talk me figures, like write them down or tell other people and get used to sort of saying, $10,000 if you're stuck saying, whatever it is. Doesn't matter what the number is. But yeah, just try and get yourself used to that. And you also brought something that you, when I was listening to you then, that sort of alarm bells went in my mind. I need to talk about is that if you need to do the work, right? Like if you need the money, mm-hmm. And it might sound like we're all smug. Look at us, ha ha ha. Yeah, charge more, blah blah blah. Right. So, like, it's got to be addressed though. If you need the money, you've got to do the work. I understand that. There will be a point where you need to start to say no to projects. If you don't have that ability, that's really tough. But this is important. And this is how you can get more confident and start to make some of these decisions, is to get yourself a bit of a runway, right? Like if you are relying on the project going ahead this week so you can eat next week, it's tough to make business decisions longer term. You need to have a runway in your business. And I know we've sort of talked about this, in sort of investing into your own business. And that's what some of that is, having that buffer in there, having money. You should have, this is sort of off the topic a little bit. You should have, business accounts and personal accounts. And in your business account, like I like to have stuff that is set aside for savings for my business, mm-hmm. or where the everyday transactions go. And I have an account just for where the tax goes. And that's saving that. And so I've actually got business savings. I've got personal savings, but I've got savings for the business, which means I don't have to stress if someone rings me up and we're having that conversation and they go underneath what I want to charge. It makes it really easy for me to go, like, we're too far. I can't bridge that gap. I know someone else who might be able to help you out, and just be able to walk away. So I understand, we might sound smug, but
but we've all been, I've been doing it for 25 years. I've been there in that position too. Yeah. I completely agree. I think that you can get into a cycle of constantly being in production inside of, and client work, and never being able to step back and take a look and say, how can I, you don't give yourself any space to kind of bring your business up to the next level, and you will just stay stuck on that hamster wheel. Yeah.
And I think one of the easiest tips that I can think of around that is to fire like your worst clients. Like if presuming that you're not new and you're not, if you've got a current, a few clients on the go, or you've got existing clients that come back to you, understand the ones that aren't profitable, get rid of those ones, and then spend the time, because you have clients that you make more money from, and some that you make, they're painful. They spend a lot of time on the phone. They keep clicking lots of emails. And if you break down the hourly rate that you're getting from those people, it's probably lower. And so if you got rid of, one or two of those, it's actually going to allow you some space to, so, I guess, again, the runway is that sort of key to getting some of that confidence.
Yeah, I think it's that. I think it's like maybe reducing the scope inside of, existing projects, just creating margin and looking where can you create margin, where can you create profit, and then giving yourself permission to invest both the money back into your business and the time back into your business, so that you can be intentional, because that always pays off. Like if you're, you may, like I was using that example earlier, undercharging on something, but doing, and I was very intentional because I was going to double my prices the next time. Yep. And so that, that came back to me, that intentionality. So it's just how can you build that in? That's going to allow you to create the space to shift the mindset to raise up the prices.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I think we covered a lot there. We probably talked longer on this one than we have on other things, but I think we could talk about this all day long if we could. But I think there's probably a lot in there for people. Hopefully there's some value there. But yeah, I think that's a good place to end.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks again,
Sounds
Christine.
good.
It's been great. And yeah, chat to you soon.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye.